Health advice for mature men. A 74-year-old gentleman approached me recently with these exact words. Dr. Marcus, I've maintained the same routine for 5 decades, yet something has fundamentally shifted, and it's not for the better. This wasn't about illness or new medications. What was silently undermining his cardiovascular health, prostate function, and sensory capacity was a private habit he'd never questioned: self-pleasure. Not the practice itself, but his approach to it, and he remained completely unaware of the damage being inflicted. I'm Dr. Marcus, a urologist with over 6 decades of clinical experience dedicated to helping men beyond 60 preserve their vitality, circulation, and self-assurance without embarrassment, pharmaceuticals, or uncertainty. You've been conditioned to believe certain practices are universally beneficial, but after reaching 60, some intimate behaviors can gradually become detrimental without producing any obvious warning signals. Immediate call to action. Before we continue, if you haven't already joined our community, this is the perfect moment to subscribe and activate notifications. You won't want to miss future guidance specifically crafted for men navigating life after 60. If this content resonates with your experience, type yes in the comments. If it doesn't apply to you, type no. Your engagement directly influences the quality and relevance of content I create for our community. Today, I'll expose 7 critical errors mature men commit during self-intimacy and provide corrective strategies before these mistakes compromise your energy, performance, or long-term wellness. The 6th mistake is particularly prevalent. Nearly every man falls into this trap. Mistake 1. Relying on explicit media as primary stimulation. Throughout my practice, I've encountered numerous gentlemen, typically in their late 60s to mid-70s, who express a troubling concern across from my desk. Doctor, they confide, sensation has diminished significantly. It's as though my entire system is becoming desensitized, and I cannot identify the cause. Invariably, I pose a direct question. How frequently do you depend on pornographic material for arousal? Almost universally, their gaze drops, not from shame, but from the sudden realization that this habit might be causing harm. Here's the critical understanding. Once you surpass 60, your brain's dopamine network, the system governing pleasure and motivation, loses much of its former adaptability and responsiveness. Consuming endless streams of high-intensity, rapidly changing adult content overwhelms your neural pathways with stimulation levels they were never designed to process. When this bombardment occurs repeatedly, day after day, week after week, your brain implements a devastating protective mechanism. It systematically numbs itself. Consequently, experiences you once cherished, the authentic, natural spark of genuine intimacy, begin to fade. Physical touch loses its impact, your body's responsiveness diminishes, and despite maintaining good health, your capacity for deep connection and authentic sensation quietly erodes. The most tragic aspect is that many older men blame themselves, assuming they've simply lost it due to aging. The reality is different. It's not age causing this decline, it's overstimulation. Without actively resetting your brain's response mechanisms, this numbness can persist for years, even decades. If you've noticed decreased sensitivity, reduced connection, or diminished satisfaction, don't dismiss these changes. This first mistake might be the hidden culprit behind your struggles. Mistake 2. Self-intimacy while seated on the toilet. This error may initially seem insignificant, even practical. Over the years, many older men have confided that the bathroom has become their sanctuary, not merely for hygiene, but for private release. It offers interruption-free privacy, a locking door, and familiar routine comfort. However, what most fail to recognize is that engaging in self-pleasure while seated, particularly on the toilet, inflicts far greater harm than anticipated. As men age, circulation becomes paramount to protect. Healthy blood flow forms the foundation of sexual function, prostate wellness, and recovery capacity after climax. Extended sitting periods, especially in the compressed, hunched position men adopt on the toilet, severely restricts pelvic blood circulation. This positioning applies pressure to the prostate, constricts the pelvic floor muscles, and gradually damages nerves that are already more vulnerable with advancing age. I've observed this pattern repeatedly. Men in their late 60s and 70s develop post-urination complications, incomplete bladder emptying, or persistent groin discomfort, yet never connect these issues to their private habits. As a urologist who has analyzed countless scans, documented numerous cases, and tracked long-term outcomes, I can definitively state that this seemingly harmless position initiates a gradual chain reaction that progressively worsens everything from intimacy to urination over time. The solution requires simple awareness. If this description sounds familiar, modify your environment immediately. Stand, recline, or provide your pelvic region space to breathe and maintain proper circulation. Your prostate is silently pleading for relief from this unnecessary compression. Mistake 3. Rushing through the experience. One of the most prevalent habits I observe in older men, particularly those who've endured decades of stress, rigid routines, or learned to keep activities brief and discreet, is hurrying through self-intimacy experiences. They treat it like a task requiring completion, a moment to finish quickly, rather than something deserving full appreciation and presence. Here's the problem. After 60, your body no longer functions optimally under pressure, literally or emotionally. Patients frequently tell me, "Dr. Marcus, I simply want to get it done. I don't have time to linger." When you rush, you trigger your nervous system into tension mode. Heart rate elevates too rapidly, blood vessels constrict, and the relaxation and hormonal benefits of release, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, never reach their complete potential. You may achieve climax, but your body doesn't receive the genuine reward. Instead of feeling satisfied, you feel depleted. Instead of energized, you feel drained. Worse still, this rushed pattern conditions your body to expect pleasure that's fast, shallow, and disconnected. Gradually, you lose sensitivity, struggle to maintain arousal, and find it difficult to sustain interest with a partner. Meanwhile, you attribute everything to normal aging. But it's not aging, it's the habit of urgency, quietly stealing something far more valuable than mere minutes of relief. Decelerate the process. Make each moment intentional. Your body remains capable of profound sensation if you provide the space to feel. Breathe, pause, remember, there's no finish line anymore, only presence. Mistake 4. Neglecting the pelvic floor. Most men have never heard of the pelvic floor, yet it represents one of your body's most crucial muscle groups, especially after 60. It's the foundation supporting your bladder, prostate, and sexual organs, the hidden powerhouse controlling everything from erection strength to orgasmic intensity to urinary control. When this muscle group weakens or receives neglect, every aspect of function begins to deteriorate quietly but significantly. I recall a patient in his late 60s, former athlete, proud father, who approached me about declining sexual performance. "Dr. Marcus," he said, "I maintain good nutrition and exercise regularly, but something simply isn't functioning anymore." What he didn't realize was that his pelvic floor, once strong and engaged during youth, had become dormant. Years of prolonged sitting, holding stress in the lower abdomen, and ignoring this body region had left him disconnected and struggling. Engaging in self-pleasure without activating your pelvic floor, or worse, bearing down and pushing, places unnecessary pressure on your prostate while weakening the very muscles that should support it. Over time, this leads to leaking, dribbling, decreased erection quality, and reduced climax sensation. This isn't sudden deterioration, it develops gradually, year after year. The encouraging news, you can reactivate these muscles. Gently contracting the area you'd use to stop urination during arousal builds awareness and strength. This simple practice can restore both physical function and confidence over time. Mistake 5. Inappropriate frequency, too much or too little. This subject causes hesitation among many older men. Some worry about excessive frequency, others quietly wonder about prolonged abstinence. Caught between shame, confusion, and outdated guidance, most men over 60 navigate this territory with uncertainty. My clinical experience reveals that both extremes cause harm. When a man engages in self-pleasure too frequently, driven by habit, boredom, or unresolved emotions, his body often cannot maintain the pace. Energy levels decline, prostate tissue becomes irritated, and recovery time extends. He may notice diminished interest in genuine intimacy as the practice becomes routine rather than desire-driven, dulling the nervous system and depleting vitality. Conversely, some men cease entirely due to medications, health concerns, religious considerations, or the belief they've outgrown such needs. What they don't understand is that the body, like any system, requires regular circulation. Sexual arousal, even without climax, maintains blood flow to the genitals, nerve endings, and preserves erectile strength. When this circulation stops for extended periods, atrophy develops. Desire fades, and the pathway to connection, both physical and emotional, begins closing without warning. There's no universal perfect number, but for most men over 60, 1 to 2 times weekly, conducted consciously with presence and care, often represents the optimal balance. This frequency allows the body to maintain circulation, restore hormonal rhythm, and keep the system vital without exhaustion. Remember, this isn't about rigid rules, it's about listening. Your body communicates quietly in older age. The key is learning to hear its messages. Mistake 6. Applying excessive pressure or force. This represents one of the most overlooked yet damaging mistakes I encounter in older men. Countless patients have expressed frustration, saying things like, "Dr. Marcus, sensation isn't what it used to be," or "it requires more effort than ever before." Behind these concerns often lies one silent habit they never questioned: using excessive pressure during self-touch. I understand the logic. As sensitivity naturally decreases with age, the instinctive response involves gripping tighter, pressing harder, or attempting to recreate lost sensation through intensity. However, here's the truth your body is trying to communicate. Force doesn't restore feeling, it destroys it. The nerves in your penis are delicate, particularly in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. Years of aggressive friction, hard squeezing, or relying on objects or surfaces that apply excessive force can cause genuine physical damage, micro tears in tissue, loss of elasticity, even beneath-surface scarring that may result in curvature, reduced blood flow, and arousal-related pain. This isn't merely uncomfortable, it can permanently alter your anatomy. This trauma acts as a silent thief, developing slowly rather than overnight. By the time you notice the difference, damage is often well established. There's another dimension. When a man feels he must fight for pleasure, he disconnects from its joy. It becomes struggle instead of healing. This mental pattern alone can reshape the body's ability to relax and receive. Adopt a gentler approach. Your body deserves it, and your future self will express gratitude. Mistake 7. Self-pleasure without emotional connection or intention. This represents the most invisible mistake of all, and often the most heartbreaking. It's not about technique, frequency, or location. It's about your emotional state during the experience. Over time, many older men begin viewing self-pleasure as something mechanical, routine, and empty, stripped of meaning. It becomes a quiet escape from loneliness or a mindless habit performed without thought, emotion, or intention. I've counseled numerous men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond who express similar sentiments. "It doesn't feel like it used to," or "I don't even understand why I continue anymore." The truth is, their bodies may still function, but their hearts aren't engaged. There's no connection, no presence, no warmth. This emotional distance exacts a toll, not just mentally, but physically. When self-intimacy becomes disconnected from emotion, it conditions the nervous system to expect pleasure without purpose. You might still climax, but your brain and body don't release the same healing hormones. You don't receive the oxytocin that elevates mood or the dopamine that builds motivation. Instead, you're left with emptiness, a shadow of what the experience once provided. More profoundly, it reinforces the concept that pleasure is something experienced alone, in silence, without joy. But this doesn't have to be your reality. Even solitary touch can be sacred, mindful, and affirming. It can become a moment to reconnect with your aging body, not in shame, but in gratitude. Your body remains yours. It still feels. It still matters. The bigger picture: your body is still speaking to you. If you've stayed with me this far, I want to address you not merely as a physician, but as someone who deeply respects your journey. Throughout my career, I've witnessed countless good men struggle in silence. They blame age, time, sometimes themselves. But the truth is simple. No one ever taught us how to care for our bodies as they age, especially regarding sexuality, pleasure, and connection. You've just learned about 7 common mistakes older men make with self-intimacy. None stem from laziness or ignorance. They develop from habit, from decades of using approaches that once worked, not realizing that the body, like life itself, changes. Slower circulation, a more sensitive prostate, a nervous system that no longer tolerates force or neglect, a heart that craves not just sensation, but meaning. Let me be absolutely clear. There is nothing shameful about self-touch. Nothing shameful about seeking comfort, relief, or joy through your own body. What becomes dangerous is when we stop paying attention, when we rush, disconnect, or assume that past approaches will always work. Every mistake we've discussed, over-relying on explicit media, using poor positions, rushing the process, neglecting the pelvic floor, inappropriate frequency, excessive pressure, or going through motions without emotion, shares one common element: disconnection. That's the real threat, not age, not desire, but the gradual erosion of connection to your own body, pleasure, and vitality. Here's the encouraging news: it's never too late. Your body continues communicating, even if more quietly now, even if responses take longer, even if sensations have changed. It remains alive and wants your attention, care, and respect. Like a classic automobile, it requires different handling with age, but that doesn't diminish its value. In many ways, it makes it more precious. What should you do now? Start small, be gentler, practice mindfulness, relearn your body's landscape. Use intention, not habit. Embrace curiosity, not shame. Stop chasing performance and start honoring sensation. Don't fear breathing, pausing, feeling. Most importantly, never stop believing that connection remains possible within yourself and with others. I've witnessed men in their 60s, 70s, even early 80s transform their health, intimacy, and energy once they stopped viewing aging as an ending and started seeing it as evolution. You deserve that transformation. You deserve to feel again. You deserve to live with awareness, strength, and dignity, even in life's most private moments. Because ultimately, this isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about reclaiming the quiet power that still resides within you. And I promise you, it's still there. Now take what you've learned, apply it gently, and remember, your best years aren't behind you. They exist in how you choose to live this next chapter, with care, wisdom, and pride. If this message helped you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with another man who needs to hear it. Your support helps us continue providing essential guidance for men navigating life's later chapters with confidence and vitality.